Terre Haute, Indiana, we took on the Ku Klux Klan. It was an organized Ku Klux Klan movement, which was started by guards and was made up of prisoners, and they were murdering prisoners. They had been doing it for years, murdering prisoners to keep them in line and so forth. And we organized, some young black people like us came in. We organized a group there, and we had an underground army. And we took on the guards, and we took on these racist prisoners. And we had united, blacks. We had united a large segment of Mexicans. We had united even a large segment of whites to attack the Ku Klux Klan, and we wiped them out.
Wait a minute. Let me back up for a minute. Because that's a point that I've made with some people that we debate about white supremacy. And so you mean to tell me you were actually able to use white people against other white people?
One of the strangest things I ever seen in my life, and I tell people this, and they said, no, that's not true. We had when I was there, our group, the African American Cultural Studies program was really like a political party, a black political party under covert, and we had a lending library, and when the books would go around, the prisoners black prisoners would get the books and so forth and so on. Well, some of these white prisoners, some of them who were, kind of political minded, had been in the anti-war groups and, and all this kind of stuff, and had been influenced as well by the struggle in the street, they started asking for, to be given black books to read and so forth, and radical books to read. And so we started giving it to them. And it educated them. It radicalized them. And they broke away from the white terrorists. They broke away from them. And they broke away from the prison guards. And we were able to use them, against the white prison guards and against the white racist prisoners, ultimately. And so I tell people about this stuff, and it's hard for them to fathom it. It's something that George Jackson himself always said that we should do. He said we should do that. He said we should take white prisoners and use them as a force against fascism.
Some scholars, though, in the black community that I've had an opportunity to talk to, they say that's impossible. They say it's impossible to use white people against white supremacy because that'll be like them acting against themselves. I don't agree with that position because, in my opinion, at the end of the day, people are people and people can be persuaded to take actions and made to believe it is in their best interest, even if it isn't.
Well, let me put it this way.
Okay.
You're in a pit. You are subjected to the same conditions as a slave of the state as I am. And what the prison officials do is they give special privileges to whites to try to use them against blacks and other, peoples of color inside the prison system. That's what they've always been able to do. But at the time of the revolutionary consciousness, we were able to break through all of that and make them see that they were slaves, pure and simple, and that these people who they claim were friends of theirs, these people were slave masters over them, and they were just using them to control all of us. And when we were able to educate people with that, and I'm not saying we educated everyone, all the white folks, but we educated a wing of them that were willing and able to take revolutionary action with us. Now that's a fact. This is a historical fact. I know, I lived through that. Now, when that happened, and I'm not saying it happens all the time, and I'm not saying that in every situation it will happen, but it happened in Terre Haute, Indiana, which was at that time called the Ku Klux Klan Jail, because, the second rising of the Ku Klux Klan was in Indiana. But the so-called Ku Klux Klan jail, we were able to get these white folks, the ones we had educated, and turn them against the other white folks, the fascists and the southern racists and all the rest of them.
So you were able to break through that propaganda programming they had received from a racist society.
Exactly. We were able to do that. And it's not an easy thing to do, but at a historical moment when there's mass consciousness in the streets, when people are fighting the government and all of that, it's possible. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. And the prison movement was at one point the central issue in the United States and other parts of the world as well. But in the early 1970s, it was the central political issue in the United States.